Hi there, welcome to Fractional Equations Part 2. So in my other video I was looking at solving fractional equations which turned into a linear expression which was relatively straightforward to solve. Now occasionally if you've got a fractional equations it might be that when you're dealing with it, it might turn into a quadratic equation. So you need to know how to solve quadratic equations first of all. So please look at the other videos in terms of solving quadratic equations. But we're going to go through the entire process today anyway, so it'll kind of cover those aspects as we go. All right, so let's have a look at what we've currently got. And it'll be a little bit like what we did previously. It's about trying to deal with that denominator and try and get rid of anything that's at the bottom, and by multiplying by a lowest common multiple as we go. So if there's an unknown in the denominator, you need to multiply each term by the denominator to form a quadratic equation. All right, that's what it says. So let's have a look at what we've currently got. So we've got 3 over x plus 5 over x plus 2 is equal to 2. All right. So it's the denominator that we need to get with, and we're going to try and multiply everything by those two denominators. All right. In the previous example of fractional equations part 1, we looked at trying to find a lowest common multiple. Now with numbers, it's a little bit more straightforward trying to find a lowest common multiple because you can just times the two together, or maybe you can see from the numbers themselves what that actually is. Well, obviously with algebra, it's a little bit different because it's quite hard to know what that lowest common multiple is, and the only way we can guarantee what that is actually timesing the two together. All right, so that means we need to times everything by x and x plus 2. Okay, all of them. So this term, and this term. You must do it by all three, or however many terms you've got. I can't imagine it'd be more than 3, but you never know. It's going to be all 3. All right, so that's what we're going to do. So first multiply each term by x. We'll start off with this one first, and then I guess we're going to do that one next. All right, so let's times everything through by x first of all. So if I times this by x, that gets rid of that denominator effectively. If I times this one by x, then the x comes to the top and the denominator stays the same. And if I times this one by x, it just becomes 2x. All right, so that's the first step. I've times that by x, and that by x. All right, and now I've got that. Okay. I'm now going to times everything by x plus 2. So we're going to end up with a bunch of brackets this time because of times it by two little things at the bottom here. So we're going to have to put it into a bracket. So times it by x plus 2, which you can see there. So I've got 3 bracket x plus 2. That's that times by x plus 2. When I times this one by x plus 2, what's going to happen is this denominator will disappear. So you've just got 5x. And then when I times this one by x plus 2, again, I'm going to have 2x bracket x plus 2. All right, so we'll end up with this. All right, and at this point, we're in a decent place because we don't have any denominators anymore, which is what we're trying to get to. But of course, we have a bunch of brackets. All right, so we're going to expand them. Like we've done before. So if I expand this first bit, I've got 3x plus 6, and then I've got the 5x as it is. And then if I expand this bit, I've got 2x times x, which will be 2x squared, and then 2x times the 2, which will give you plus 4x. All right, and we've written over here solve. All right, now for me, you expand the bracket first, and then we look to solve. But of course, in order to solve, we need to put it in a format that's going to allow us to solve it. That means we need to get it in a form where we've got a quadratic and make it equal to 0. It's the only way we can solve it, and it's the only way that we've been taught before how to solve a quadratic equation is that we look to try and get everything onto one side and make it equal to 0. Okay, and in essence, we also want to try and make sure that the value of x squared is positive as much as possible. Okay, so we're going to rearrange this to get everything onto one side and make it equal 0. Okay, so you can see my answer here, but if I leave the 2x squared there, I've got 8x there, 3x and 5x is 8x, and I bring that across, it become a minus, so 4x, take away the 8x, gives me the minus 4x, all right? The plus 6 I'm going to bring over here as well, and that's going to become a minus, so hence the minus 6 there. So I've got 2x squared minus 4x minus 6, all from getting this, so these three things, onto this side, okay? So 2x squared minus 4x minus 6. Well, at this point, a couple of options. Now, I could use a quadratic formula if I know it, but I'm hoping that to this point, I might be able to do it without. And I've noticed, and I don't know if you have, that all these are values of, or multiples of 2. So I can divide them all by 2. All right. They haven't done. in this case. All right, they haven't done it at all. They've just literally just kind of factorised it straight away. I'd be tempted to divide it by 2. But ultimately, going back to this, then this must factorise quite nicely, and hence they've got this idea. All right, so they've split it up into 2x and x. So for this point, the 2x and x, because they know it must be 2x squared. And then from there, we are looking at trying to decide what numbers go in here. All right, so I've got 2x and x. Well, the number here is a -6, so it needs to be a plus and a minus. And therefore it's got to be -3 and 2, and then checking that's -6, so that's plus 2x. Okay, so you've got this one. Now what I was kind of suggesting is you could half all this. All right, so if I halved all that, I'd have x squared minus 2x minus 3. That's still going to give me with x minus 3 here, but what I would get is x plus 1 in this bracket. All right, so you can see from what I'm talking about and what actually has happened here, there's obviously variation in terms of what you can and should or shouldn't do. Now, there's nothing wrong with what's on here at all, but I spotted the fact that these could be divided by 2, and that would probably made it a little bit easier than trying to factorise it as it is. Okay, but of course, the 2 values that I'm after now, because again we haven't solved it yet, all I've done is factorise it, is the 2 values in here that's going to make these equal 0. Okay, so what's going to make this bracket equal 0? Well, 3 take away 3 is going to make this 0. So I've got one value of x as being 3. That's the first one. And then what value in this is going to make this equal to 0 as well. So what is 2 times what plus 2 is going to give me 0? Well, it must be -1. So 2 times -1 is -2, plus 2 is 0. All right. And like I mentioned a minute ago, if that was x plus 1, that would have been a lot easier to identify this number here, but it does give you the same outcome. All right. So just a couple of little suggestions in terms of what you can and cannot do. There's no right or wrong, other than obviously the answer, but there's no right and wrong in terms of you not doing something or you must do something else, because there's no explanation or expectation from the outset. They just want you to solve it. Solve it. And by doing that, I got to this bit and thought I could do something with that. Obviously, you don't have to. It still works either way, but it did factorise and give you those kind of solutions. All right. Please visit maths-school.co.uk. Obviously, this lesson is on there with a kind of step-by-step process, so you can revisit it with also a bunch of kind of questions for you to have a practice at. All right. Thanks for listening.